Hello, my name's Steve and you are listening and also watching the Go Football podcast. So this is the podcast that talks all about grassroots football, whether you are a coach, player, parent, referee, just got a love for the game, don't worry, you are in the right place. So this week on the episode as well, and we're getting right into these episodes, I have got a guest on here, and this is one that I think that a lot of coaches are going to like a lot. So I have got Emma, and she is a SEND coach, also plays football, and she's going to give us a real insight into coaching and players and for parents for SEND children in grassroots football. So also this week, as you can see, jazzy background. Let me know what you think of that one too. But let's not wait any longer. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the Go Football podcast. So this week is a real special week. We've got a guest on again, and this week we are joined by Emma. Emma is an SEN coach, so she'll be telling us all about the things that we need to do as coaches. And I think this is one of those topics that we really needed to get someone else on. I wouldn't have been comfortable doing it by myself. So I've got an absolute expert on there that's going to tell us all about it. And as coaches, hopefully we can all learn something today about how we can treat children that are coming that may have some additional requirements, because it is a scary world out there for a lot of coaches, especially when, you know, a lot of coaches, they are going to be just parents that are there to sort of like help and support the teams. Maybe they've done it out of necessity. Maybe they've kind of been pushed into that, but maybe they don't have all of the experiences that they would need, or, you know, any way of getting this information. So a big welcome to Emma. Thanks very much for coming on today. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's great to be here, actually, and it's nice to take a break from everyday working life to actually talk about sport, because obviously I do work in SEND, but I never really get a lot of time to actually apply it to the sporting world other than coaching, because obviously I just work in education, so it's really good to offer this insight as well to coaches that may need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're also a footballer too. You play football too, so you kind of go hands in hand with what we're looking at here then as well.
Yeah, I do play football. It's my release. I've played from being 10, so I'm very invested in it, and also creating these opportunities for, you know, children like myself that have come from my background, so I do have ADHD myself, and you know, it's been an absolute lifesaver for me. So it's so important that children with special educational needs and disabilities do have these opportunities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I suppose let's start right at the beginning. You know, just for anyone that's coming in that's saying, "Oh, I don't even know what SEND World is or what it's all
Yeah.
about," as well. So, just give us a quick rundown then, as like, you know, what SEND it kind of means for grassroots football.
Yeah, so in general, looking at the definition itself, it's learning disabilities or learning difficulties or needs that impacts the child's ability to communicate, to learn, you know, to kind of process the sensory world around them. So that can be, you know, things like the setting that they're in. So for example, in football, it might be that a child struggles with the level of noise or with the hustle and bustle or with cognitive demands. So for example, following instructions, being able to regulate emotions, you know, for example, if they're losing or if they can't do a skill right, or a lot of children with special educational needs and disabilities may get quite fixated on being perfect and trying to fit in, and those norms. So putting it into a definition is really difficult because the spectrum is so huge, and I suppose that's why it does make it quite a difficult concept to consider when coaching, because if you, for example, have a child with autism in your team, it's not just one thing that you can look at and then, oh, actually, this is how we deal with it, or this is what we do. The spectrum is huge. You know, I've worked with thousands of children and with autism or ADHD or other learning needs, and not one child has ever been the same. So it's about having to adapt to meet that very individual kind of characteristic and profile of that child. So yeah, it's just basically any kind of learning disability or learning need or physical need that impacts that child's ability to function and access, you know, those coaching sessions, really.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that you sent over before we got started as well was, you know, what can really help, and I think it can kind of help all children as well, but especially for someone who's maybe got an additional requirement that's needed, of having some structure in the sessions as well. So how does structure really help with someone that needs that additional support?
Yeah, it's absolutely crucial. So the first thing, obviously, that's structure and that adaptability. So it's just how you format your sessions. So actually being organised and planned, so it's not chaos. Actually turning up with a bit of a plan already, and communicating that. I mean, that's, to me, it's not an additional thing that should be done just because you have a child with additional needs. I think that is probably pivotal to a great session, regardless. You having those ideas, how it's going to flow, how it's going to work. So if we were to start a session to say, right, the session is an hour long, some children will need to know how long with special needs the individual parts are going to be,
Right.
because that is something that they need to know for that safety. So structure and predictability makes that child feel emotionally safe. So for example, you may say, we're going to do 10 minutes on the warm-up, then we're going to progress into passing drill, then we're going to take it into a game situation, and then there will be a match at the end. So there's 4 parts to today's session. So the child knows that there's 4 parts, and that is the bit that they will take. If we just keep giving instruction, description after description, that is where the child will disengage and will really struggle. So format your sessions, prepare them. If you can, have visuals. So I know, coaches that I work with, or schools that I work with, like PE teachers, or those coaches that kind of work with children with sending kind of exclusive clubs, will have a visual of that session. So it could be just drawn on a whiteboard, it could just be modelled, for example, so the child can see what is going on. So you'll start your warm up, you'll model it, you'll explain it, and provide that reassurance, and then you may have to just guide that child through it. But I don't think it's actually any different from a child without additional needs. Regardless of what team I'm coaching, whether there's needs or not, I always deliver in the same way, because they get the most from it. It's more organised and planned, behaviour's better, engagement better, enjoyment's better, and I actually feel like I'm a better coach because I
Yeah.
have got that flowing session. So I don't think we need to become too bogged down and worried by the aspect of send and, we've got these children with additional needs. It's just simple coaching principles that we should be doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is really, really important to prepare them and make that session predictable. So if week on week we can have 4 sections or 3 sections to our training, the child is not having that kind of fear or anxiety beforehand about needing to know what to expect.
Yeah. What about letting them know before, like the week before as well? Like, does that help sometimes? Of these are the things we're
Yeah.
going to be doing next week, so that there's a whole week, or does that sort of like maybe give a bit of anxiety? Like, oh, I've got now I know about it. I've got all week to worry about it. Or is it better to sometimes say to some children that have these, requirements where it may be a bit more soothing for them to find out maybe a week before. So next week, this is the format that we're going to do, and then it's very much easier for them to maybe prepare for. I don't know. Like, how
Yeah.
is that a good idea too? Is that better for coaches to also think that?
Yeah, really good idea. So when I was coaching my group, basically I would give the parents a session planner, so it will see over the next 6 weeks, this is what we're doing, and this is what it will look like. Also, like you said, giving those visuals, so we call it a bit like a storyboard. And like I said that previously, it's just the minimum expectations of planning. But if you can and you do have the time, I'm obviously when I work with coaches or skills, I'm obviously always thinking about your time. It's time you're giving up, and actually additional things. But that is a great addition. I agree, where you are giving them kind of that plan that it could look like. So it could be a 3-week plan, 4-week plan, but always next session, and then even texting parents just to say, today, remember, we'll be working on X, Y, Z, and even just telling them what they'll need. So yes, you will need a drink, you will need your boots, things like that, because children with special educational needs, especially autism and ADHD, can get quite fixated on the what ifs. So what if I don't have the right things, or what if I turn up and I don't have this, and what if, and a lot of that will come from parent reassurance. But for a coach to be aware of that and sending that reassuring message that today, and even after the session, being like, you did great today, this is what we're doing next time, so yeah, really, really good way of just that constant real communication of the predictability, so we remove that fear of the unknown, because that is where that anxiety comes from for children, which then comes out in behaviour or disengagement, or them running off, or them giving kind of verbal abuse back, or those kinds of things. So yeah, structure, predictability, things like that are huge. Yeah.
Okay. And what about communicating? Is like communicating better in like short formats or more direct, or is it better to do with both? You just mentioned like visuals there as well. So like coaches boards is something I use all the time. I often put coaches boards out, especially at half time. Get those things out. Sometimes I even do it for the practices as well to say this is where we're going to be doing. Sometimes we have a quick walkthrough as well. Some of the practices, especially for some of the the players that are kind of requesting, like, can we do this and this as well? Or can you show me? I just need to see that. Or in a one-to-one session, especially, it's very much, can I see that first? And then can we do it? Especially when we're adding things like more touches, more turns, and more everything in. Sometimes it's quite complex as well. So what's the kind of rules for like communicating effectively with someone? Because I think that coaches, they'll go there, don't they? And they just expect. And I don't think they do it in a bad. Sorry, I'm trying to just cut you off there. As well. Sorry about that. But yeah, I think that sometimes coaches just go on there and, if you've not had the experience of doing it, you just go, well, all you've got to go in there is just go on there and just move when you need to move, and you need to do the space when you need to get the space, or you need to pass to this person when they're free, or, if you mention something and it doesn't fit someone's terminology, like overlap, underlap as well. Sometimes you say, go for an underlap and they'll do an overlap as well. And it's just the terminology that children are kind of using. So what's the kind of like key instructions that can be given out to make things like really easy, simple, so that there's no confusion there?
Yeah, so we have kind of rules in the shall we say, in the ADHD world especially, and this kind of works with children across all those additional needs conditions. But we have the 3-step rule. So basically a child will switch off after 3 instructions. So if you're demonstrating, say, kind of a passing drill or a passing technique, just keeping it basic, and you kind of say, right, the ball comes to you, you then do this, you then do this, you then do this. Even though you're showing it, the child is either fixated on your movements and not really listening to what you're saying, or you've spoken that long that they've switched off. So at the end, they think about, like, what am I doing? What do I need to do? So can you do it again? Can you show me again? And that's, again, all children, with the attention span, they don't have to have additional needs. Some have better listening skills than others. Some have better attention span than others. So again, it's for everyone really, but we have a 3-step. So what we say is that you do each step differently. So for example, you may demonstrate first and not say anything. So they just watch and just say, just watch my feet, watch my body. Then you may say it. So then say, making eye contact with that child, and then you may model it together. So talk them through it. So you can use them in examples. So as you're explaining it, the best thing to do is you make the child go through it, use them as your example, or get them with a buddy, or, basically you've got to communicate it in a way that works for them. So you may have to ask them, how do you learn best as well? Because like I said, some needs are so kind of niche, and the spectrum's so big that you can say, actually, how do you learn best? Speak to parents. How do they learn best? What am I best doing? Because some may find it's easier to just listen. But yeah, 3-step instructions. If you're talking about tactics, again, keeping it down to a 2-minute stint. And in that, you may talk for a minute, demonstrate, talk for a minute, and then demonstrate. So actually you're breaking down that communication. So at half time, a child with ADHD and autism could have switched off after 30 seconds. So imagine what you get through in that 30 seconds, the rest. So actually they may go back onto a pitch or go back onto the training pitch and be like, oh, what did you say? Because all I heard was, well done guys, we did this, we did that, we did this, and the rest is just gone. So yeah, obviously breaking it down, modelling, which is what you spoke about showing it, asking questions, reassurance, walking them through it, and then kind of letting them trial and error it as well. So let them give it a try and then intervene if you need to.
Excellent. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they're good points. I suppose, like always, demonstrations are always good, but I suppose that people always do the talking and showing at the same time. So,
yeah.
But to let them know that sometimes could be hyper fixated on arm movements or what they're doing body wise that they don't hear anything, or the other way, they hear everything and they're so focused on what you're saying and then trying to join the two together that it can't, or it doesn't always work in that way for them.
Yeah.
It doesn't develop in that way. Oh, so what kind of triggers would someone find in an actual game? So I think that some of the things that I had experience with, and I do coach some children with some additional needs, but sometimes I don't really know that until quite a while afterwards. So I was coaching one person on a 1-to-1, and it was only when there was a shortage of medication did his parents say to me, we're going to sit and watch the whole session and we need to be really close today because he's not got medication. He's not had his medication for whatever the shortage was as well. And I didn't dig too much deep into it. I was very much like, yeah, absolutely stay there as well. And to be honest, he's always fine with me. It's never a problem, never caused any problem. Probably wants to talk a little bit about other things other than football during the session as well, which kind of gave me a bit of an indication. You know, it's going on about computer games and other things. And, you know, all of a sudden I could be talking about football, saying we're going to do this and this is what we're going to do and demonstrate it. And he's got it all right, does it 3 or 4 times, then comes back and starts talking about something completely random to me. You know, and sometimes so I kind of got that idea already. But, you know, what are maybe the trigger signs that a child is unhappy? Because I imagine, is it kind of like a build up for some children? Like, you know, it's start the session, it's, you know, I don't understand that, and it gets worse and worse and worse, and they get really fixated. Is that kind of a concern that coaches should be thinking about too?
Yeah, I think we have 3 stages. So we have pre-stage, which will be, you know, what I spoke about at the beginning about that pre-session anxiety about who's going to be there, who's going to be coaching, what are we going to be doing, what if I've not got my boots, what if I've not. So we always have that fixation on the pre-anxiety. So the start and how a coach starts a session will alleviate that by giving that predictability, by, you know, talking to the child, reassuring the child, even just checking in. So, hi, how's your day been today? You're excited for it? Just kind of giving them that kind of relief. And then we may have build up. So when you start to do skills, a child with additional need might become fixated on something called like perfectionism. So either being the best, and it's also a thing with children without you know, without needs as well. Actually, developmentally, children are at that stance of that status of wanting to do better, wanting to be the best, you know, wanting to impress. Fear of failure is huge, you know, amongst all ages. So we have a lot of that as well. So children will start to build up and we might see some kind of emotional dysregulation. So the first thing usually you might see is kind of thought processes that child kind of communicates. So I'm rubbish, I can't do this is boring, I don't like it. So you may see the verbal start. Then you might see physical. So you could see children starting to sweat, starting to breathe quite heavy, getting quite tense. So you can start to read all these triggers. And then the behavioural things might come out. So if we don't see the physical, if we don't respond to the psychological and what they're externalizing through their words, we might then see the behavioural where they may stay, you know, kick the ball away, they might run off, they might say something that they don't mean. So we have to be emotionally aware. So that's kind of the pre. And then the afterwards, it's if they didn't win, or, you know, if they didn't feel like they did very well, or they didn't get that reassurance, or, you know, they felt like they were left out, or anything like that afterwards, the child can be quite sad the session's ending, so may externalise that feeling and not understand why by saying, I didn't enjoy that was rubbish, such a body left me out. So you might see very random kind of things being said and behaviours. Yeah, so we have the pre, we have the during, and then we have the post as well. So again, communicating at each stage, but that middle stage of being aware of all those triggers to de-escalate anything is huge. Yeah.
Interesting that you say that at the end, actually. Like they're saying, oh, it's rubbish, it's bad, but they kind of enjoyed it, but it's because it's coming to an end. So they see, is it that they're kind of seeing that the end of the session is that's the bad bit, that it's finished and it's good, but the takeout that some coaches might get at that is, oh, you didn't enjoy my session. You thought it was rubbish. You know, as opposed to they actually really enjoyed it. They're sad that it's finishing, but the communication between the coaches and the child are just not matching up. You know, what one's not hearing.
Yeah, it's the way the child communicates that. So actually, they're just feeling really sad that it's over, and actually, they might still be quite aroused from the session. So quite excited. You know, if it's been a game and the kind of the kind of heart still racing, you know, that adrenaline still kicking, and for children with ADHD, they have like this real dopamine factor, dopamine seeking, and football gives children that dopamine, you know, dopamine boost. That's what the body needs. So they can become quite hyper aroused, hyperactive. So when that ends, it's like a big for that child that they just cannot communicate and cannot cope with. So sometimes it's no fault of the coaches, really. It's, you know, it's just the way the child communicates that they're sad that it's finished, but they don't know how to. So that's how they do it. So what a coach can do is say, right, guys, 5 minutes to the end, 3 minutes to the end, next goal wins. So you're preparing that child, right, it's coming to the end. You know what I mean? So that that post stage can be prevented by a coach giving that transition warning.
Yeah. I was going to say that using that next goal winner, I do that with pretty much all my teams. And that is probably the most exciting 2 minutes of any football match ever. I mean, even all the parents wait for that, right? So, I mean, they know home the parents, I suppose, but at the same time, like every kid just plays more and harder. Although for some reason they can score goals every minute in the in a game at the end. When it's going end to end because it's odd numbers, it's teammates, one goalkeeper with no goalkeeper in the other end. And then as soon as you say next goal winner, it seems to go on for about 10 minutes. Like really complex. Everyone's got loads more energy. It seems to go on for like 10 minutes without anyone scoring. So yeah, it's great. So I suppose out of some of the points that you've made they're all great points, by the way. I genuinely never considered that a child will tell me that something's bad at the end and mean it's good. I completely misread that. I've probably had that a handful of times, really, where I've had someone that said something along those lines, but then has always been back first the next week.
And it's like nothing's happened. It's like actually next time they don't even mention anything, and then so you can't take anything personal. That's probably my biggest tip to take away. Don't take anything personal, and don't ever let anything go on into the next session. So even if has someone's like hurt your feelings as a coach or kind of disrespected you, have that restorative so that child's not thinking about it as well for the entire week. And just so if they've had a bit of a dysregulated end, just say you did brilliant today, looking forward to seeing you next week. And it kind of gives that child again that release them from that kind of shame or that the fact that they have said certain things because they haven't meant it. It's just been a way that they've communicated how they're feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I say, I just didn't realise it, and I think that's a really good point. I think that some coaches really, hopefully, I'm going to use this as a soundbite for sure, that coaches could really use that in their sessions, or it'll give them a good understanding at the end of their sessions if they needed to. I suppose the next kind of question that I wanted to ask you is if there is, I don't know the right terminology, so if I get it wrong as well, it's completely apologise. When there's been a child who's maybe walked off or had maybe a little bit of what some people would probably class as an outburst of, maybe really upset, throwing things around, walking off, that kind of thing. What would be the best method for a coach, really? Would it be to let them go and cool down and have their time out, or would it be to try and intervene at that point of explaining and talking? I appreciate what you said at the start as well. It's a wide spectrum and it's going to be very, very hard to see where and what you should do. But what are some, if we could give some key points out to coaches, would it be let them go and calm down by themselves? Would it be interact? Would it be intervene? What would be sort of maybe some of the key points and some of the key things that a coach could do to maybe even manage, not just manage the child, but manage what they're doing better too?
Yeah, so we call that the 4 R's. So the first one's regulate. So we absolutely don't try and add fuel to that fire. So if we go over, and I suppose it depends how experienced you are in these situations. So for example, if a coach was to go over, and I'll use this example because I've seen it, and say, do not walk away from this session or you go home and get back here, and they add fuel to that fire. So a child that's already or is unable to regulate, you are just absolutely adding fuel to that fire. So they are getting more hype, and they completely, what we call, flip the lid. So have to give them time to regulate. So if this happens once, you learn from that experience in terms of, right, this is a person that is a runner, and that's what I call where when they need to regulate, they need to move. You might have someone who needs pressure, and that's a person that might kick things, hit things, so you've got to understand, how does that child regulate? Is it through the pressure? Is it through the space? Or is it through connection?
Right.
So learn from that first time. If it is connection, that means they just need you to go over and maybe hand on the shoulder, maybe tell, say, are you ready to talk? Listen, let's talk it out. You take 2 minutes. So it's about learning from the first time it occurs, really. But if you're seeing this for the first time, let them regulate. Just say, it's all right, Jackson, I'll give you 2 minutes to take a breather, have a drink, and then when I get these going, we'll talk about it, or just come and join in when you're ready. So give them that control that actually you don't have to sit out and wait for me to come over. If you come over and you're ready, because some children will, in school settings or at home, know that they can go out into a safe space, regulate, and then come back, and we've got to create that emotional safety. So absolutely let them regulate. Then we go and relate. So we try and understand whilst they're regulating why that's happened. So for example, if they're losing, or if they've been fouled, or if they're feeling some injustice, for example, that someone's cheating, just thinking of the typicals, You can
Always.
go home and say, yeah, I know you might be angry that you got fouled. It's okay to feel angry. It's not okay to hit or kick, if they've done that. So it's just about that relating to them. So we don't say you do not get angry. Getting angry is absolutely fine. Getting sad is absolutely fine. It's the behaviour that we can then say, actually, that's not okay. So put those boundaries in place. So yeah, go and relate to them. Go and give them that connection that they may need, even if it's just, are you okay? Okay, just literally the basics. Then talk them through what happened. So yeah, I know you're angry. Next time, yeah, that's fine. You come here and take a breather, or just come and speak to me about it, or just come and stand out. Just kind of that relation is huge. Then if we need to, because a lot of coaches think, no, there needs to be boundaries. They need to, if they kick someone, then they need to be sent off. Absolutely, but there's a time to do that. So we don't absolutely say if they've hit someone and ran off, or they've swore, or they've shouted at you or whatever. We don't just send them out straight away. We can say, oh, because you have kicked someone, just come and stand with me for a minute, or I will need you to apologise. But that regulation has had to happen first. That relation building, so that relation needs to happen first, and then the reasoning. So that is the reasoning. So that you saying, although you got angry, mate, you can't kick, so please come just stand here for a minute, or can you go and apologise? And because you've de-escalated, it is likely, more than likely, 9 times out of 10, they'll be fine to agree. If they're not ready to do that, just kind of say, okay, then just take another minute with me, and then just carry on. So don't force them to apologise at that point, because the moment's gone, but you kind of teach them. It's about that kind of coaching moment that you can have with that person to build that resilience, really.
Yeah.
And then the final R is that restorative. So for example, if someone's ran off from you, it's just restoring that relationship, so they don't have that fear really of that they're in trouble or next session. Because what I've seen is some coaches just use the ignore tactic. So actually the child's done something wrong, they've come back in, and you can really tell that they're annoyed, or you know what I mean, like personally they've got a bit of a grudge, which can just trigger even more, or the child, that dysregulation just continues to happen. And that's where, the real struggle comes from. So like I said, you have to be able to detach from that emotion, which can be quite hard sometimes for coaches that don't have experience in this area or coaching children. So yeah, so let them relate to the reason, and then restore is our 4 coaching hours for that, if a child runs away, or
I think
that's
great. Yeah, that's great. I think that they can also be used with like all children, really, can't they?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Same kind of things. But sometimes with some other children, especially if it's a coach and it's their own child, they kind of know how to deal with that one as well. So they've got the whole 10 years experience of that of dealing with that child. With many children as well, they've had them September, and this could be happening in October or November as well. They've only known them 4 sessions or so, something like that, 4 or 5 hours. They've spent time with them, in training before they get into games and things like that. So yeah, they're really, really good points as well. So I mean, I suppose, is there any kind of resources that coaches could go and use? Is there anything that is a good stop point of, this is what you could go and check these things out, these would be really helpful and useful?
So I've got a lot of things that I could probably send to yourself to pile. Like I say, I don't really see much out there. I've learned from teaching, I've learned from being in that learning environment, and applied that to sport, because my coaching badges, I've never seen any resources out there really. So like I say, I have kind of a handbook that I'll give to PE teachers or community coaches that I'd be happy to send to you to give out, because like yourself, I haven't seen really anything out there. I know like Youth Sport Trust have some things on, adapting practice, but that's mainly for children with physical needs. I haven't really seen much out there for children, that like ADHD or autism or learning needs or cognition needs. So yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what everyone could do as well. They could obviously head over to your pages and your socials, which will all be in the bio as well. So everyone can go head straight over there and go and check them out on all those things as well. So that's always a good place to kind of go. So I suppose, look, if there's any kind of key major points that you were to kind of say to coaches, like these are the key things that I think you should really focus on or really consider, or maybe even parents too. Tell you one experience that I had with, I was coaching very, very young children. So it was more about social interactions rather than football. I mean, football was the driver to get people there, but these were children that were under 5. So it was 2 to 5 year olds in age groups. And there was there was one little boy that was there. His name was Jackson, actually, as well. You mentioned it earlier as well, but his also name was that. He would come and he would almost have his hand touching me almost the whole session. Like he just like needed to kind of have contact. And if I moved away to go and help someone else, he'd follow, put his hand on me. And it wasn't until after like maybe 2 sessions, his mum came over and kind of said, "I'm so sorry. This is he does this. We're trying to get him better. We're trying to do it." And I was just like, "Do you know what? Honestly, it's fine. It's no problem. He's literally just following me around and making it easy for me because I never have to call him over. So he's always like, how do you want me to deal with this?" And they were like, kind of, they don't know. Like, and as parents, they didn't kind of know either. But if we were to just look at a couple of like key points, maybe for parents and then also coaches, what would those main points be?
So the main thing for things like, so we're looking at attachment here, and again, it's that making the child or the young person feel safe. And we talk about emotional safety.
Mm-hmm.
So when I've got children, that may be quite attached to me or constantly asking for reassurance or constantly wanting to show me something, it's about how can I make them feel confident. So over time, we wouldn't expect them to just completely, be on their own all the time from the start. So it's that gradual exposure to that. So I might let them with me for 30 seconds and then I will put them with a safe buddy and they will always work with that person. And I know that's not always possible, but as we can, keep the children, the group around them constant. So they feel that emotional safety by them. And it's just putting those boundaries in place. So, for example, with Jackson, "Hi Jackson, yeah, great, you stay here for 30 seconds right now. I want you to go and do 5 passes with such a body." And then he might come back after 5 passes. Right, next, in the next drill, right, you're going to stand over there, you're going to do, your 10 runs with Mabel. Like absolutely give them little challenges to do, very short challenges, just to increase. I'll be standing right here, I'll be watching, go on, and actually just put those boundaries kind of into place. Now it's quite difficult because some children, for example, if they were autistic, may have like one-to-ones or may never be on their own. So it's about them building those skills for that independence. And it's a skill that obviously, my toddler now, he's 2.5 and he is very attached to me. And I know if I took him to diddy kicks or whatever, he will not leave my side. So it's gone from him literally clinging to me holding his hand to doing the exact same, right? You've got 20 seconds to go and dribble round, and I'm here. And actually the fact that I've kind of built those boundaries over time, he's now very independent on his own. Mm-hmm. So it's just building the boundaries over time, trying to keep some consistency and predictability, using that buddy, using that same group. But it is all about time, it is just giving it time, really. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Well, look, I suppose we've got to the end of the kind of 30 minutes or so as well. But look, honestly, I really appreciate you coming on and talking. Like I say, there's not many places that you can go and get the resources from. I know that I mentioned to you just before we started that I'd looked on the FA website and couldn't really find anything that was going to detail towards that. There was quite a lot on disability and, disability sports, but there wasn't anything on the kind of things we've been talking about today, and especially for coaches that maybe need a bit of extra help and support because, we want to make football inclusive, or I always see that grassroots football should be inclusive for everyone. Everyone should be able to turn up to a football club and everyone should be able to go there. To make it more inclusive, sometimes you have to train the trainers, you need to train the coaches so they know what they should be saying, what to do, how to look out for things. And even if they don't ever need to use them, they would always know where to go and find them, and there isn't. So I'm really hopeful that some people listen to the podcast and can take some really good key points out that you've been bringing up as well. So thank you so much for coming on. Do you want to just say what your socials are and things like that? So if everyone want to go and follow you and can find them all, that would be great too.
Yeah, so on TikTok, it's just the Zen Coach. So again, it's a lot of educational based things, but stuff you can apply. And then I will post, obviously, the links for the sports stuff as well for coaches and community coaches, PE teachers, anyone really that works kind of in the sport. But yeah, I suppose the final thing as well is you can do the courses, autism awareness, SEND awareness, and it's about applying that then to your coaching situation and your just having that basic awareness of the key conditions that may be coming through. You can use that knowledge to adapt, because I've learned through experience. I don't learn off the theory and the things like that. It's about putting yourself in those situations, just learning from those situations and collaborating with parents. I think that's the top tip, really. But I think just go for it, back yourself, and don't overthink it. I think a lot of coaches just overthink and think, oh God, well, what if this happens and this happens, this happens? let it happen. We learn from it. We've got parents to collaborate with, you know, and you can absolutely reach out to me for advice as well. So if there's anyone watching this that thinks, actually, I have got a child, just give me a message and I'll support you as much as I can.
Oh, perfect. Thanks for offering to do that for the whole community of grassroots football now as well.
No
You'll be
worries,
inundated
yeah.
at some point soon. So, but
No
again,
worries.
thanks very much for coming on the show. And for everyone else, we will see you on the next episode next week.
Thanks for having me.
So a big thank you to Emma, obviously, for coming on to the show this week too. You know, there's some really insightful things in there, some things that I didn't realise, some things that I could be doing better for myself when coaching. And hopefully, as football coaches, parents, and also players, you can get something out of this one too. You know, if you can do, head over to Emma's channel. I'll drop all the links in below so you can follow those through and just head over there. Any questions, she's more than happy to help and support. But yeah, honestly, I think this was a really insightful episode. Hope that you thought so too. And I will see you on the next episode.